Your antibiotics have an expiration date. Silver doesn't. And that single fact is about to become the most important thing you've never thought about. Here's something that will completely rewire how you think about modern medicine. For 3,780 years, from 1850 BC all the way to 1928, silver was the most powerful antimicrobial substance on Earth. Egyptian healers applied it directly to wounds. Alexander the Great carried water exclusively in silver vessels during his military campaigns. Roman physicians included silver nitrate in their official medical records. World War I medics wrapped battlefield wounds in silver leaves because infections were killing as many soldiers as enemy bullets. Then penicillin arrived in 1928, and silver disappeared almost overnight. Why use ancient metal when you have a miracle pill? Fast forward to right now. Antibiotic resistance kills 1.27 million people directly every single year. Another 4.95 million deaths are attributable to resistance annually. 1 in 6 infections is now resistant to standard antibiotics. And here's the number that should stop you cold. The last genuinely novel antibiotic class was introduced in the year 2000. That's 25 years ago. We haven't created a new class of antibiotic in a quarter century, while bacteria have been evolving resistance every single day. NASA uses silver on the International Space Station right now for 98% water recovery. The World Health Organization distributes silver-impregnated ceramic filters to 2.2 billion people without safe drinking water. Hospitals worldwide coat equipment with silver to fight drug-resistant infections. 3,000 years of silver dominance. 97 years of antibiotic effectiveness. We are now in year 25 of the collapse. The pattern is mathematical. And if you understand what I'm about to show you, you'll never look at your medicine cabinet the same way again. Let me explain exactly what silver does to bacteria and why it's so devastatingly effective that bacteria still haven't figured out how to fully defeat it after 3,000 years of trying. The term oligodynamic comes from the Greek words for few and force. Even microscopic quantities of silver absolutely devastate bacterial populations. Carl Nageli documented this scientifically in the 19th century, though he couldn't identify the actual mechanism at the time. What he discovered was that silver at concentrations as low as 0.01 to 0.1 milligrams per liter negatively impacts bacterial metabolism at the cellular level. Here's where modern medicine collapses and ancient wisdom resurfaces simultaneously. Silver doesn't attack bacteria through one pathway. It attacks through multiple simultaneous pathways at once. Pathway 1. Silver ions penetrate bacterial cell membranes through interaction with thiol and amine groups in bacterial proteins. The cell membrane integrity becomes compromised. Bacterial contents leak out. The organism dies. Pathway 2. Silver ions directly interact with bacterial DNA and RNA, interfering with replication and protein synthesis. The bacteria literally cannot reproduce. Pathway 3. Silver nanoparticles, solid particles at the nanometer scale, generate reactive oxygen species, hydrogen peroxide, hydroxyl radicals. These create oxidative stress that degrades cellular proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids simultaneously. The bacterial cell self-destructs from accumulated chemical damage on multiple fronts at once. Now here's why this matters so much compared to antibiotics. Antibiotics target a single metabolic pathway. Bacteria adapt through a single mutation. One mutation, one workaround, resistance achieved. Silver attacks cell membranes and DNA function and generates reactive oxygen species and interferes with metabolic processes all at once. Bacteria would need to evolve resistance to all of these pathways simultaneously to survive. This is why bacterial resistance to silver remains extraordinarily rare despite 3,000 years of exposure. The smaller the silver nanoparticle, between 1 and 10 nanometers, the more effective it becomes. Higher surface to volume ratio means more silver available for direct bacterial contact. This is exactly why NASA engineers designing water systems for the International Space Station chose silver ionization over chemical disinfectants for the most critical water system ever built. Now let me show you exactly how bad the antibiotic crisis has actually gotten, because the mainstream media is vastly underreporting this. Between 2018 and 2023, antibiotic resistance rose in more than 40% of bacteria and drug combinations tracked globally. Average annual increases between 5 and 15%. In Southeast Asia and the Eastern Mediterranean, 1 in 3 infections now demonstrates resistance to standard antibiotics. In parts of Africa, resistance rates exceed 70%. E. coli and Klebsiella pneumonia, 2 of the most common causes of bloodstream infections globally, are showing resistance to third-generation cephalosporins at alarming rates. More than 40% of E. coli strains and 55% of Klebsiella pneumonia strains now resist these first-line antibiotics. In the United States alone, more than 2.88 million antimicrobial resistant infections occur annually. More than 35,000 people die as a direct result. The estimated annual cost to treat infections caused by just 6 common resistant organisms exceeds $4.6 billion. Without substantial intervention, projections indicate antimicrobial resistance could cause an estimated $3 trillion in global GDP losses annually by 2030, exceeding the entire economic burden of COVID. And here's what breaks the system entirely. Pharmaceutical companies find antibiotic development economically unattractive compared to chronic disease medications. Financial incentives no longer reward antimicrobial innovation. We're losing the war against bacteria, and nobody's building new weapons because there's no money in it. Same overuse, same selection pressure, same cascade to resistance. The pattern doesn't care which bacteria, it doesn't care which antibiotic. It follows the same trajectory every single time. Now let me show you what this means, practically for anyone thinking about long-term preparedness, because this is where most people's strategy completely falls apart. Amoxicillin capsules and tablets typically expire between 2 and 3 years from manufacture. For amoxicillin in liquid suspension form, commonly prescribed for children, shelf life drops to just 14 days after mixing with water. 14 days. Doxycycline tablets maintain stability for approximately 2 to 3 years under proper storage. A properly stocked antibiotic kit for a family of 4 sufficient for an extended emergency requires $500 to $1,500 in pharmaceutical costs, not accounting for continuous replacement as medications approach expiration. You're rotating supplies every 2 to 3 years, forever. The cost never stops. Between 2013 and 2016, some formulations of cephalexin suspension increased in price by 206%. Between 2001 and 2013, there were 148 documented antibiotic shortages, creating situations where essential antibiotics became temporarily unavailable, regardless of what price you were willing to pay. Now compare that to silver. Colloidal silver products containing 10 to 30 parts per million, when stored properly in amber or opaque bottles at cool temperatures, remain stable for at least 1 year. Some products demonstrating stability for significantly longer periods. Silver nanoparticles stored at refrigeration temperatures and protected from light maintain stability indefinitely. Unlike antibiotics, which degrade through predictable pharmacological processes, colloidal silver changes primarily through oxidative dissolution, a process that actually increases the concentration of dissolved silver ions available for antimicrobial activity. No rotation, no replacement of expired materials, no complex logistics. Ceramic water filters coated with silver can be manufactured and stored indefinitely without degradation. Let me take you through NASA's water system because this is the most stringent real-world test of silver ionization technology that has ever existed. The environmental control and life support system on the International Space Station must achieve approximately 98% water recovery efficiency. The system collects wastewater from crew bathing, drinking, and urine, processes it through multiple filtration stages, and uses silver alongside advanced filtration to prevent microbial growth during storage. The water produced by these systems is actually purer than most municipal water supplies on Earth. Astronauts consume this recycled water without hesitation. That is the standard silver achieves when properly incorporated into water treatment systems. On the ground, the Potters for Peace organization has trained groups across multiple continents to manufacture ceramic water filters impregnated with colloidal silver. Studies demonstrate these filters remove between 97.8% and 100% of applied bacteria from water samples. An estimated 2.2 billion people worldwide lack access to safely managed drinking water. The WHO has supported silver-based ceramic filter initiatives specifically because they create sustainable water purification capacity that doesn't depend on distant supply chains or external expertise. A ceramic water filter system impregnated with silver can be manufactured using primarily local materials for approximately $15 to $25 per unit. Each filter is capable of providing thousands of liters of treated water before requiring replacement. Over a 10-year household water consumption period, these filters prove 3 to 6 times more cost-effective than centralized water treatment systems. No electricity, no mechanical expertise, minimal ongoing maintenance. Now let me walk you through what's happening at the cutting edge of medical research because this is where the story gets truly remarkable. Methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus MRSA has developed resistance to nearly all chemical antibiotics. Many healthcare facilities now employ silver-impregnated equipment. Surgical tools, needles, stethoscopes, furniture, door handles, even paper files. But here's the breakthrough that changes everything. The combination of silver nanoparticles with conventional antibiotics demonstrates synergistic activity. Lower antibiotic concentrations achieve bactericidal effects against resistant organisms when combined with silver. This opens the possibility of resensitizing resistant bacteria to conventional antibiotics that had previously stopped working. Silver nanoparticles functionalized with ampicillin produce nanocomposites that kill ampicillin-resistant strains of Pseudomonas aeruginosa, a particularly problematic opportunistic pathogen responsible for killing immunocompromised patients in hospitals worldwide. Silver isn't just a standalone alternative. It might be the key that unlocks antibiotics we thought were permanently defeated. Now I need to give you the complete honest picture because responsible analysis requires this. The FDA issued a final rule in 1999 establishing that all over-the-counter colloidal silver products are not generally recognized as safe and effective for any medical uses. The agency explicitly stated that adequate safety and effectiveness data have not been provided to support use of colloidal silver for any over-the-counter drug purposes. The critical safety consideration involves argyria, a condition where silver accumulates in body tissues and causes permanent bluish-gray skin discoloration. Argyria is typically irreversible. Research suggests that estimated cumulative doses as low as 70 milligrams per kilogram of body weight can eventually produce generalized argyria. The World Health Organization established a reference dose of 6.5 micrograms per kilogram of body weight per day across all exposure routes to prevent argyria development. Current FDA guidance prohibits commercial marketing and sale of colloidal silver as medicine. It does not criminalize personal possession or private manufacturing for personal use. The distinction creates a legal gray area that individuals must navigate with full awareness of the risks. Topical application carries dramatically lower systemic absorption risk than ingestion or injection. When silver remains on the skin surface or is used in wound dressings, risk of systemic toxicity is minimal because only tiny amounts are absorbed through intact skin. The therapeutic range for silver in wound care appears to be greater than 30 parts per million, but no more than 60 parts per million. Levels below 30 show reduced effectiveness. Levels above 60 exhibit cytotoxicity to healthy tissue cells necessary for wound healing. For individuals thinking about silver for water purification, here's what you actually need to know about purity grades. Fine silver, designated 0.999 or pure silver, contains 99.9% silver with only minimal impurities. This extremely high purity is essential for water purification and medicinal applications because any impurities could themselves leach into water or accumulate in tissues. Sterling silver contains only 92.5% silver with the remaining 7.5% typically comprising copper or other alloying metals. Pre-1965 United States coins contain exactly 90% silver and 10% copper. Here's where people make critical errors. The copper content raises theoretical concerns. If copper alloy preferentially dissolves into water, the resulting solution could contain copper ions that differ in toxicity profile and mechanism of action compared to pure silver. Fine silver, Thiene 99 purity represents the safest choice for water purification, though at significantly higher cost. The practical compromise? Use pre-1965 coins for quantity while reserving fine silver for situations where maximum purity is critical. But understand this clearly. Simply placing a silver coin in a water bottle does not guarantee antimicrobial effectiveness. The degree of silver ion dissolution depends on water chemistry, temperature, pH, oxidative conditions, contact time. Variables that cannot be reliably controlled with passive methods. For those interested in more controlled silver generation, basic DIY generators use 2 pure silver electrodes immersed in distilled water. When electric current passes through the electrodes, silver ions release into the water, creating a suspension. Advanced setups use Arduino microcontrollers for precise current delivery, automatic polarity reversal to prevent electrode depletion, and timer functions that terminate the process at desired concentration. For household water purification, operation at 5 milliamps produces commercially standard concentrations of 10 to 30 parts per million within approximately 3 hours. Now let me walk you through proper wound care protocol because this is where silver's practical value is most immediate and most documented. Modern wound care protocols using silver-containing dressings have been extensively studied over decades of clinical experience. Concentrations greater than 30 parts per million demonstrate antimicrobial effectiveness against planktonic bacteria and biofilms. Concentrations exceeding 60 parts per million begin to demonstrate cytotoxicity to keratinocytes and fibroblasts, essential cell types involved in wound healing. A 5-step application protocol. First, thorough wound cleansing with saline solution. Second, careful assessment of wound characteristics to select appropriately sized dressing material. Third, gentle application of silver-containing dressing directly to the wound bed without overlapping onto healthy surrounding skin. Fourth, coverage with secondary dressing to manage exudate. Fifth, secure fixation with gauze or tape. Dressing change frequency depends on wound characteristics. Minimal drainage might require changes only every 5 to 7 days. Highly draining wounds necessitate more frequent changes. For emergency scenarios without access to commercial silver dressings, distilled water saturated with colloidal silver to moisten sterile gauze, then applied to the wound and covered with additional dry dressings, creates makeshift silver-containing dressings. The theoretical advantage is that it continues releasing silver ions into the wound environment as moisture evaporates, maintaining antimicrobial effects over extended periods. Here's the bottom line on what the historical record actually tells us. For over 3,000 years, silver represented humanity's most effective antimicrobial intervention. The fact that ancient healers discovered and systematically deployed silver for water purification and wound treatment without any understanding of germ theory demonstrates the extraordinary effectiveness of the substance. The rapid transition from silver, as primary antimicrobial, to near obsolescence following penicillin's introduction reflected rational medical decision-making at the time. Why maintain expertise in managing silver when antibiotics provided faster, easier options with dramatic cure rates? Yet the emergence of antibiotic resistance demonstrates that the apparent inevitability of pharmaceutical progress was an illusion. The same Darwinian processes that shaped life for billions of years continued operating uninterrupted in bacterial populations. We got complacent, and bacteria never stopped evolving. In this historical moment of crisis, silver has transitioned from being dismissed as obsolete folk medicine to being reconsidered as a potentially critical tool backed by serious scientific research. The extraordinary fact remains, bacteria have not developed the extensive resistance to silver that they have to antibiotics, despite silver being used in medicine for thousands of years before penicillin ever existed. 3,180 years of silver dominance. 97 years of antibiotic effectiveness, 25 years into the collapse of that effectiveness. The pattern is documented, the mechanism is understood, the resistance crisis is verified. What you do with that information is entirely your decision. If this forensic breakdown changed how you think about medical preparedness, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is dedicated to examining the patterns history reveals before those patterns repeat in your life. I dig into the evidence mainstream media won't touch and give you the analysis to make informed decisions. Drop a helicopter emoji in the comments if you're already thinking differently about long-term preparedness, and tell me what forgotten technology or historical pattern you want me to investigate next. Every single comment gets read because the people watching this channel aren't passive consumers. You're people who understand that preparation isn't paranoia, it's pattern recognition applied to real life. Share this with someone who still thinks antibiotic resistance is a problem for the distant future, because the pharmacy running dry isn't a hypothetical. It's a trajectory that's already in motion. The question isn't whether antibiotics will continue losing effectiveness. The question is whether you'll recognize the pattern before the pharmacy runs dry or be standing in line wondering why the person next to you is purifying water with silver while you're holding expired amoxicillin that won't cure anything. 3,780 years of evidence says silver works. 25 years of antibiotic decline says you should pay attention to that evidence. See you in the next one.